The Peninsula Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors where Manhattan's elite gathered for the annual Tech Vision Summit. Men in tailored suits traded cards. Women in designer dresses sipped champagne. The air hummed with wealth and ambition. Marcus Hale moved through the crowd like a shark through water. His cobalt blue suit was custom Brioni. His watch cost more than most cars. At 42, he'd built Technova into a billion-dollar empire, and everyone here knew it. He stopped near the registration table, checking his phone. Someone approached from his left, Mr. Hale. The voice was warm, professional. Naomi Carter. I'd love to discuss your keynote. Hale glanced up. A black woman in an ivory blazer stood before him, hand extended. Her expression was pleasant, expectant. He looked at her badge. No company logo, no title, just a name. His eyes moved past her without connecting. I don't shake hands with staff. His tone was casual, dismissive. If you have questions about the event, find someone with a headset. The woman's hand stayed suspended for one heartbeat. 2. Then she lowered it slowly. The conversations around them faltered. People turned, watched. Naomi Carter didn't flinch. She simply nodded once, her expression unreadable, and stepped aside. Marcus Hale walked past her without looking back. His phone buzzed with another notification. He smiled, texted a response, and disappeared into the crowd. Behind him, Naomi stood perfectly still. The chandelier light caught the gold pin on her lapel, a small, elegant CA that no one seemed to notice. Someone whispered nearby, "Did that just happen?" Naomi's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. She turned and walked toward the shadows at the back of the ballroom, her heels clicking softly against marble. 30 minutes earlier, Naomi Carter had entered the peninsula through a side entrance. No fanfare, no announcement. Exactly how she preferred it. She'd built Carter Apex Fund from nothing over 15 years. $2 billion in liquid capital, stakes in 47 companies, but she operated through shell corporations and proxy representatives, her identity carefully guarded. Most people assumed Carter Apex was run by a man, or a committee, or old money European investors. She let them assume. It gave her an advantage that money couldn't buy. She saw people's true faces. The Tech Vision Summit was invitation only. Every attendee had passed multiple background checks. The guest list read like a Forbes cover: tech founders, hedge fund managers, venture capitalists who controlled billions. Naomi had secured her invitation through a third-party investment firm. Her badge identified her only as Naomi Carter, independent consultant, no company name, no credentials. She'd worn the ivory blazer deliberately, professional but understated. Her natural hair was pulled back in a low bun. Diamond studs, real but modest. She looked successful enough to belong, but not distinctive enough to draw attention. She wanted to observe, to listen, to understand who these people were when they thought no one important was watching. Her target today was Marcus Hale. Technova was bleeding cash despite its impressive valuation. Hale had been courting Carter Apex Fund for months through intermediaries. 12 meeting requests, 23 emails. Increasingly desperate offers of equity stakes. He needed her money. But Naomi didn't just invest in companies. She invested in people. And she needed to know who Marcus Hale really was before she wrote any checks. She'd spent the morning circulating through the crowd, listening to conversations, watching interactions, taking mental notes. Hale was charismatic on stage, generous with handshakes for the right people. He quoted Martin Luther King Jr. in his promotional materials, but Naomi had learned long ago that words were cheap. She wanted to see his character when he didn't. Know it mattered, so she'd removed every marker of her power, made herself appear ordinary, approachable, forgettable. Then she'd walked up and extended her hand. His response had told her everything she needed to know. The ballroom lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. Marcus Hale took the stage to thunderous applause. "Thank you," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Thank you all for being here." The teleprompter glowed. Hale hit his marks perfectly. He spoke about disruption, innovation, and democratizing technology. He quoted Steve Jobs. He made the audience laugh twice. "At Technova," he continued, "we believe technology should serve everyone, not just the privileged few. Not just people who look like me." Approving nods rippled through the crowd. Someone near Naomi murmured, "He's so inspiring." Hale's speech lasted 20 minutes. Every word was carefully crafted. Every pause was calculated. He finished with a story about a scholarship program Technova funded for underprivileged youth. The applause was deafening. Naomi watched from the back, arms crossed. Her expression remained neutral. After the speech, Hale descended into the crowd. Photographers swarmed. He posed with investors, laughing, shaking hands, his smile never wavering. Naomi waited until the crowd thinned. Then she approached again. "Mr. Hale," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. "That was a compelling speech. So I'm curious about your company's internal diversity metrics." He turned, still riding the high of his performance. Then he recognized her. The woman from before. The one he'd dismissed. His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm sorry, but I'm meeting with investors right now. If you have concerns about event logistics—" "I'm not event staff," Naomi interrupted gently. "I'm asking about Technova's executive team, your board composition, whether your internal practices match your public messaging." A man beside Hale chuckled. "Does she have clearance to be asking these questions?" Hale's publicist appeared at his elbow, whispering urgently. Security shifted closer. Hale held up a hand, his expression patient but firm. "I appreciate your interest, but these discussions happen in appropriate channels. Security handles complaints and inquiries. You'll find someone wearing a headset near the registration desk." Laughter rippled through the nearby investors. Quiet but unmistakable. Someone whispered, "How did she even get in here?" Another voice, "Probably catering staff on break." Naomi stood perfectly still. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She simply held Hale's gaze for 3 long seconds. Then she nodded slowly, turned and walked away. Behind her, Hale's smile returned. He accepted a glass of champagne from a server and dove back into conversation with a hedge fund manager. He'd already forgotten her, but Naomi hadn't forgotten anything. She walked to the hallway, pulled out her phone and sent a single text to her CFO. Decision made. Proceed with Plan B. The hallway outside the ballroom was empty. Marble columns stretched toward vaulted ceilings. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan sprawled beneath gathering clouds. Naomi stood alone, her reflection ghosting across polished floors. Her phone buzzed. Her CFO replied, "Confirm?" "This is 200 Mellor's decision." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes and breathed. The anger was there. Old and familiar. It settled in her chest like a stone she'd carried for years. She thought of every boardroom where men had mistaken her for an assistant, every pitch meeting where she'd been interrupted, talked over, dismissed. Every investor who'd asked to speak to her boss. She'd built her empire in spite of them. Perhaps because of them. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. "They'll underestimate you, baby. Let them. It's the only advantage you'll ever need." Naomi opened her eyes. The city stretched before her, indifferent and vast. Marcus Hale had just made the most expensive mistake of his life. He just didn't know it yet. She thought about his speech. The inspiring words about equality and access. The scholarship program he'd mentioned so proudly. Pretty words. Polished delivery, empty of substance. He believed his own mythology. Believed he was progressive, enlightened, generous. But when faced with someone he perceived as beneath him, his true nature had emerged instantly. He didn't see her as a threat. As a person. As anything at all, just staff. Naomi pulled out her phone and typed a response. Confirmed. Move forward. Then she added, and make sure Technova's team knows Carter Apex has a representative on site today. 4 p.m. meeting. Conference room 7. She hit send. The stone in her chest began to warm, not with anger anymore. With purpose. She straightened her ivory blazer, smoothed her hair, and walked back toward the ballroom. Marcus Hale wanted to meet with Carter Apex Fund. Wanted it. Desperately. He was about to get his wish. Naomi was 19 when she first entered a building like this one. She'd been cleaning offices for Morrison Venture Capital. Night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Vacuuming conference rooms, emptying trash cans, wiping down glass tables where powerful men made decisions that shaped industries. She'd been invisible then too. But she'd paid attention. The analysts left pitch decks on their desks. Market reports. Investment memos. Naomi read everything. Taught herself the language of venture capital while the city slept around her. She'd saved every dollar from that job. $5,000 over 8 months. Then she'd invested it all in a tech startup everyone else had rejected. Too risky, too unproven, too weird. The startup was bought by Google 18 months later. Naomi's $5,000 became $400,000. She'd reinvested immediately, found another company no one believed in, then another. Her returns compounded. Her instincts sharpened. By 25, she had her first million. By 30, she'd launched Carter Apex Fund with $20 million in capital. By 35, she'd grown it to $2 billion, but she'd learned something crucial in those years. Power made people careless with the truth. When investors knew she controlled capital, they performed. They told her what she wanted to hear. They hid their flaws and amplified their virtues. So she'd started operating anonymously, using shell companies, proxy representatives, legal structures so complex that her identity remained buried beneath layers of corporate paperwork. It allowed her to see the truth. She'd walked into boardrooms as an administrative assistant and watched CEOs berate staff. She'd attended investor meetings as a junior analyst and heard men make racist jokes when they thought no one important was listening. Every time she'd taken mental notes, and every time her investment decisions became clearer. Carter Apex Fund had a reputation for backing companies that succeeded. But what people didn't know was that Naomi's secret weapon wasn't financial modeling or market analysis. It was character assessment. She invested in people who treated others with dignity, who led with integrity, who understood that respect wasn't transactional, and she destroyed people who didn't. Marcus Hale had been on her radar for months. Technova's technology was solid. Its market position was strong. On paper, it was exactly the kind of investment Carter Apex usually made. But Naomi had heard whispers. Employee complaints, discrimination lawsuits settled quietly. A culture of arrogance that radiated from the top. So she'd come to see for herself, and within 5 minutes, Marcus Hale had confirmed every suspicion. Her grandmother would have been proud. Naomi returned to the ballroom and found a quiet corner near the bar. She opened her tablet and pulled up Technova's financial reports. The numbers were worse than she'd expected. Despite its billion-dollar valuation, Technova was burning through cash at an alarming rate. Overstaffed, overspending on marketing, expansion into markets that weren't generating returns. Hale needed $200 million within 90 days, or the company would start missing payroll. He had 3 potential funding sources. 2 had already declined after due diligence revealed concerns about leadership and culture. That left Carter Apex Fund. Naomi scrolled through her email. Hale's team had sent 12 meeting requests in the past 6 weeks alone. The tone had shifted from confident to desperate. The most recent email sent this morning. Mr. Hale is prepared to offer favorable terms. Carter Apex's involvement would signal confidence to the market. Please advise on availability. She smiled faintly. Hale had spent months trying to reach her, trying to impress her, trying to convince her that Technova deserved her capital. And then, when she'd stood in front of him without her armor of wealth and reputation, he hadn't even seen her as human. Naomi opened her encrypted messaging app. Her CFO had confirmed the 4 p.m. meeting. Technova's team had responded immediately, gratefully. Hale was currently being briefed by his assistant. She could imagine his reaction. The relief, the excitement, the certainty that his problems were about to be solved. She closed her tablet and glanced across the ballroom. Hale was holding court near the stage. Investors surrounded him, laughing at his jokes, competing for his attention. He looked confident, victorious. He had no idea his world was about to collapse. Naomi thought about what she was about to do. The public nature of it. The deliberate humiliation. Part of her hesitated. She wasn't cruel. She didn't enjoy destroying people, but she thought of his voice. "I don't shake hands with staff." The casual dismissal. The assumption that she was beneath him, and she thought of every other person he'd treated that way. The employees, the assistants, the servers and cleaners and people he'd walked past without seeing. This wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability. Naomi finished her water, set down the glass and checked her watch. 3:45 p.m., 15 minutes, until Marcus Hale learned the most expensive lesson of his life. She stood, smoothed her ivory blazer, and walked toward conference room 7. Marcus Hale stood in the executive lounge, adjusting his tie in the mirror. His assistant, Rebecca, hovered nervously behind him. "They confirmed," she said. "Carter Apex, 4 p.m., conference room 7. Hale's face lit up. "Finally." He turned from the mirror. "How do I look?" "Perfect, sir." He straightened his cobalt blue jacket and checked his watch. 3:58. He'd rehearsed this pitch a dozen times. The numbers were solid. The vision was clear. Carter Apex would say yes. They had to. "This changes everything," he said, more to himself than Rebecca. "Once Carter Apex backs us, the stock rebounds. The other investors come crawling back. We're untouchable." Rebecca nodded, though her expression remained uncertain. "Sir, about earlier. The woman who—" "Not now." Hale waved her off. "I need to focus." He grabbed his leather portfolio and headed toward conference room 7. Other investors noticed his purposeful stride and whispered among themselves. Everyone knew what a Carter Apex investment meant. Validation, security, power. Hale reached the conference room door and paused. Took a breath. Centered himself. Then he pushed the door open, his hand already extending, his smile wide and confident. "Good afternoon. Marcus Hale, Technova. I'm so pleased we could finally—" He stopped. The room was empty except for one person. The black woman in the ivory blazer sat at the head of the conference table. Her hands were folded calmly in front of her. Her expression was neutral, unreadable. Hale's smile faltered. He looked around, confused. "I'm sorry, I'm looking for the Carter Apex representative." Naomi Carter looked up slowly. Her eyes met his. "You're looking at her." The words hung in the air like smoke. Hale blinked. "I don't understand. I'm Naomi Carter." Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "Founder and CEO of Carter Apex Fund. You've been trying to reach me for 6 months. The color drained from Hale's face, his mouth. Opened, closed. No sound came out. Naomi gestured. To the chair across from her. "Please, sit down." Hale didn't move. His brain struggled to process what he was hearing. This couldn't be real. Carter Apex was run by investment bankers. European money. Old wealth. Not her. "There's been a mistake," he stammered. "I'm supposed to meet with me." Naomi's voice cut through his denial like a blade. "So you're supposed to meet with me." "And you did." "Twice today, actually." She opened a folder on the table. Inside were photographs. Security footage stills. Time-stamped. Clear. The first image showed Hale looking past Naomi at the registration table, her hand extended. His eyes dismissive. The second showed the moment after his keynote. Security moving closer. Investors laughing. Naomi slid the photos across the table toward him. "I don't shake hands with staff," she quoted softly. "Those were your exact words." Hale's hands trembled. He tried to speak, but his throat had gone dry. "I came here today to evaluate your character," Naomi continued. "Technova's technology is impressive. Your market position is strong. On paper, you're exactly the kind of company Carter Apex invests in." A flicker of hope crossed Hale's face. Naomi saw it and extinguished it immediately. "But I don't invest in people who measure worth by appearance, who see service as inferiority, who only show respect when they need something." She closed the folder with a soft snap. "You failed the test, Mr. Hale, catastrophically." The room felt like it was closing in. Hale gripped the back of the chair to steady himself. "Please," he whispered. "I didn't know. If I'd known who you were, that's exactly the problem." Naomi's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You only care about people when they have power over you. Everyone else is invisible." Outside the conference room, the summit continued. Laughter and champagne. Deals being made. Futures being secured. Inside, Marcus Hale's world was ending. Naomi stood gathering her folder. Technova needed $200 million. You had 3 potential investors. 2 already declined. I was your last option. She walked toward the door, then paused. You just lost $2 billion in potential backing, Mr. Hale, because you couldn't be bothered to shake a black woman's hand. The door clicked shut behind her. Hale stood alone in the empty conference room, his reflection staring back from the polished table. And for the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be invisible. Marcus Hale didn't know how long he stood there. Minutes, hours. Time had become meaningless. Through the conference room walls, he could hear the muffled sounds of the summit, music, conversations, the world continuing without him. He sank into the chair Naomi had offered him. His hands shook. His chest felt tight. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. He pulled out his phone. 12 missed calls. 23 messages. His CFO, his board members. Investors asking about the Carter Apex meeting. Everyone expecting good news. He couldn't make himself answer. Couldn't form the words that would explain what he'd done. The ivory walls seemed to press inward. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. He thought about his company. 600 employees who depended on him. Families, mortgages, children's college funds. All of it balanced on his ability to secure funding. And he'd destroyed it with 4 words. "I don't shake hands with staff." The memory replayed in his mind. Naomi's extended hand, her pleasant smile, his casual dismissal. He'd been thinking about his phone, about his next meeting, about himself. He hadn't seen her at all. Hale's phone buzzed again. His CFO. How did the Carter Apex meeting go? He stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the keyboard, but there was nothing to say. Outside, someone laughed. A champagne cork popped. The summit continued, vibrant and alive. Inside Conference Room 7, Marcus Hale sat alone in the silence of his own making and realized for the first time what he'd become. Naomi didn't return to the ballroom immediately. She stood in the marble hallway, letting the adrenaline settle. Her phone buzzed. Her CFO. "Status?" She typed back, "Meeting complete." Moving to Phase 2. Within minutes, her legal team was mobilizing. Her CFO was preparing documentation. Her network of proxy investors was being activated, because Naomi Carter hadn't come here just to reject Marcus Hale. She'd come to save Technova from him. She walked to a quiet alcove and made a call. "David, it's Naomi. I need you to contact Technova's board of directors. Tell them Carter Apex is prepared to make an offer. Not to fund Marcus Hale, to replace him." The voice on the other end paused. "A hostile takeover?" "A rescue mission," Naomi corrected. "Technova has 600 employees who deserve better leadership. I'm prepared to inject $200 million and take 51% equity. But Hale goes, "Non-negotiable." She could hear typing on the other end. "The board will want to meet. I'm available now. Conference room 7. I'll give them 30 minutes to decide." Naomi ended the call and pulled up Technova's employee records. She'd been researching the company for months. She knew the names of the engineers who'd built the core technology, the project managers who kept operations running, the administrative staff who held everything together, good people working for a bad leader. She thought about Hale sitting alone in that conference room. Part of her felt sympathy. He'd built something real, something valuable, but he'd also built a culture where people were disposable, where respect was conditional, where power excused cruelty. That ended today. Her phone buzzed. "Board members en route. ETA 10 minutes. Naomi smiled slightly. She'd expected them to move fast. Technova's board knew the company was dying. They'd known for months. But they'd been loyal to Hale, hoping he could save himself. Now they had a choice, loyalty or survival. She smoothed her ivory blazer and walked back toward conference room 7. Marcus Hale was still inside, she knew. Still processing. Still hoping for a miracle. He was about to get one, just not the kind he expected. 20 minutes later, conference room 7 filled with voices. Technova's 7 board members crowded around the table. Marcus Hale sat at one end, pale and quiet. Naomi sat at the other, composed and still. Between them lay the future of a billion-dollar company. "Ms. Carter," the board chair began, an older man named Gerald, who wore a mustard-yellow tie. "We appreciate your interest. But we need to understand what happened today." Naomi opened her folder. "What happened is simple. I came to this summit to evaluate Marcus Hale's character before investing in his company." She slid the security footage images across the table. The board members leaned forward, studying them. "Within 5 minutes of meeting me, Mr. Hale refused to shake my hand because he assumed I was event staff. He did this publicly, in front of investors and colleagues." Gerald's expression darkened. "Marcus?" Hale's voice was barely audible. "I didn't know who she was." "Exactly," Naomi said. "You didn't know. So you treated me as if I didn't matter." Another board member, a woman in a ruby-red blazer named Patricia, spoke up. "This is unfortunate. But surely we can... There's more." Naomi pulled out additional documents. "Over the past 6 months, I've conducted extensive due diligence on Technova. I've interviewed former employees, reviewed internal complaints, analyzed company culture." She spread the papers across the table. Discrimination lawsuits, settlement agreements, employee exit interviews citing hostile work environment. Mr. Hale has created a culture where respect is transactional, where people are valued only when they're useful, where power excuses behavior that would destroy anyone else. Gerald's face had gone red. "We've addressed these issues." "You've buried them," Naomi corrected. "With settlements and NDAs, but the culture hasn't changed because the leadership hasn't changed." Hale finally found his voice. "This is about one mistake. One moment. You can't judge my entire career. It's not one moment." Naomi's voice cut through his protest like ice. "It's a pattern. And today you showed me who you really are when you think no one important is watching." The room fell silent. Patricia spoke carefully. "What are you proposing?" Naomi leaned forward. "Carter Apex will inject $200 million into Technova. We'll take 51% equity, but Marcus Hale will step down as CEO immediately." Gasps around the table. Hale stood abruptly. "You can't do this." "I can." Naomi's voice remained steady. "Your company is dying. Your employees are suffering. Your technology deserves better leadership. And you think you can run Technova better than I can?" Hale's voice rose, desperate. "No." Naomi met his eyes. "I think your employees can. I've identified 3 internal candidates who have the vision, integrity, and respect of the team. Any one of them would be an improvement." She turned back to the board. "You have a choice. Accept my offer and save the company. Or stay loyal to Marcus Hale and watch Technova collapse within 90 days. Gerald looked at the other board members. Unspoken communication passed between them. "Could we have a moment to discuss privately?" he asked. "Of course," Naomi stood. "I'll be in the hallway." "You have 10 minutes," she walked out, leaving the board and Marcus Hale to face the consequences of everything he'd built and everything he'd destroyed. 7 minutes later, the conference room door opened. Gerald emerged, his expression grim but resigned. "Ms. Carter, the board accepts your terms." Naomi nodded. She'd expected this. They had no other choice. "Mr. Hale will step down effective immediately," Gerald continued. "We'll announce the transition and your investment simultaneously. The board will work with you to identify his successor." "Thank you." Naomi shook his hand. "Technova has enormous potential. This is the right decision." Inside the conference room, Marcus Hale sat alone at the table. His empire had crumbled in less than 4 hours. Naomi walked back to the ballroom where the summit was reaching its peak. Investors mingled. Deals were being made. The energy was electric. She moved through the crowd quietly. No one noticed her. No one important ever did, until she stepped onto the stage. The moderator looked confused but handed her the microphone. The crowd gradually quieted. "Good evening," Naomi said. "I'm Naomi Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Apex Fund." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Phones came out, people recording. "Many of you have been trying to reach me for years. I operate anonymously for one reason. I want to see who people really are when they think I'm nobody." She paused, letting the words land. "Today, I came to this summit to evaluate Marcus Hale and Technova." Within minutes of arriving, Mr. Hale refused to shake my hand because he assumed I was event staff. The crowd erupted, gasps, shocked whispers. Someone near the front said, "No way." "I've just concluded a meeting with Technova's board," Naomi continued. "Carter Apex will be investing $200 million and taking majority control. Marcus Hale is stepping down as CEO effective immediately." The ballroom exploded with noise. Investors shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The energy shifted from celebration to chaos in seconds. Naomi raised her hand for quiet. "This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. Technova is a good company, with brilliant employees who deserve leadership that sees their worth. That's what Carter Apex invests in. Always." She set down the microphone and walked off stage. Behind her, the summit descended into pandemonium. But Naomi moved through it like a ghost, invisible once again. She walked outside into the cool Manhattan evening. The city stretched before her, vast and indifferent. Her phone buzzed. Her grandmother's photo appeared on screen, a reminder she'd set years ago. "They'll underestimate you, baby." "Let them." Naomi smiled, touched the screen gently, and walked into the night. Respect isn't something you turn on and off depending on who's watching. It's not a strategy or a performance. It's not reserved for people with power or withheld from people without it. Respect is the baseline of human decency, the price of admission to civilized society. The one thing you owe every person you meet, regardless of their title or status or usefulness to you. Marcus Hale learned this the most expensive way possible. But the truth is, he'd been paying this price for years, in employee turnover, in buried lawsuits, in the slow erosion of his company's soul. He just hadn't noticed until someone made it impossible to ignore. Naomi Carter didn't destroy Marcus Hale. She simply revealed what was already there. She held up a mirror and forced him to see what everyone else had been seeing all along. And in the end, that's what power should do. Not dominate, not control. Not demand recognition, but hold people accountable. Protect those who can't protect themselves. Transform broken systems into better ones. The world is full of Marcus Hales, people who've convinced themselves that success excuses cruelty. That ambition justifies dismissiveness. That power means never having to see the people you step over on your way up, But the world is also full of Naomi Carters, people who remember where they came from, who see the invisible, who understand that the true measure of character isn't how you treat people who can help. It's how you treat people when you think no one important is watching, because someone always is, and sometimes they control your entire future.